I'm going to give you the basics of the PS2 Model 25. These are pretty cool computers. So I actually have two of these. This is the most common one that you'll find. It is a PS2 Model 25. It came with an 8086 processor that ran at 8 megahertz. The maximum memory is 640 kilobytes. The giveaway that it's the 8086 model, if you're looking, is, first of all, the part number is 8525-004, but also the screen right there on the top left, it says PS2 Model 25. Now this one over here is the 286 model. This one is a lot more rare, but physically it's nearly identical. The only differences have to do with the motherboard, the CPU, and well, actually there's an interesting thing here, the power switch. You see the power switch on this one is white and the power switch on this one is red. One thing you'll notice on these is this is a pretty regular configuration. There's no hard drive in it. I can tell for two reasons. First of all, there's just a blank slot here. There's no cooling fins or a hard drive indicator light like this one on my Model 25 286. But that's not the only indicator of a hard drive, because it's possible someone could have installed one of these that didn't have a front panel. But the easy way to check about that is just to reach in and grab these and they pop right off. Now you see how that's empty on the inside? There's definitely not a hard drive in here. Now, there's not another spot in this computer for a hard drive to mount. The disk drive, this is a double density disk drive, meaning it uses this kind of a disk. You see it says 3.5 double-sided 1 megabyte. And that means it's not going to read this kind of disk properly. You see this one has the little logo there, it says HD. This is a 1.44 megabyte drive. Anyway, there's a slight possibility you might have a high density disk drive in yours, but it's really easy to tell if you do or don't. You see the button right there, how that one's blue? Well, you see over here on my 286, I do have a high density disk drive. The button is a little bit smaller and it says 1.44. Now, if you don't have a disk drive, you're going to have a really hard time doing anything on this. It's pretty important that you have a disk drive because that's what you use to run the setup utilities. Anyway, I'm going to clear the 286 off the table so I can show you the guts of this bad boy over here. Alright, I cleared my other one off the table. I wanted to show you something else. Up here on the label, you'll see there's the three colors there. That indicates that this one has a color monitor. They also made these with a monochrome monitor. They don't have those colors there. Now this uses a type of graphics called MCGA. It's very similar to VGA, but it has fewer capabilities. Only IBM PS2s had it, and a limited amount of games and software actually support the 256 color full color mode with these. I'm gonna go ahead and pop her open. Now, they made these things where they have kind of a service mode, so they're easy to work on. What you do is, if you kind of rotate it around like that. Now, I've pulled the screws out of mine so that I could easily show you the thing in this video, but I'm gonna prop under my shoulder and lift her up. There we go. Gently set it down. And you see how it's sitting on the monitor there? Now watch this. The screws that I removed are right here and right here. Once you've removed those screws, you could just kind of grab the back here and pull it up and swing it out. It's on a hinge. What are we looking at now? Well, if you just bought yours from a garage sale or pulled it out of your dad's attic or bought it from a estate sale, you're probably going to have a bunch of dust and crap in here. I suggest you go ahead and blow all that out so you can get a good look at your motherboard. Make sure you don't have any spiders, webs, or anything else that's going to cause this thing to burst into flames when you turn it on. But I'll point out a couple things. First of all, up top, we have the monitor section and also the power supplies in there. Now, IBM actually built these things pretty damn good. A lot of them are still running on the original old hardware. They built these things to a industrial almost to an industrial specification like they did their old typewriters, and that's one of the reasons why these were so much more expensive than other computers at the time. IBM sold these things to companies, and the companies weren't looking at computers like now, where it's just something you kind of buy and use and then throw in the garbage after a couple years. They bought these things as something that was going to last for a long time. In fact, I have these keyboards that everybody's always raving about that came with this one. This keyboard, from what I understand, was engineered to last 10 years. What keyboard do they make now that's engineered to last 10 years? I mean, it kind of doesn't make sense because you're going to throw your whole computer in the garbage probably in 3. But let's see what we got here. So the basics of the motherboard. You'll look here and you will see SIM slots, right? And those look like regular 30-pin SIMs. They are, but they aren't. Meaning if you go and try to buy some other sort of RAM and stick it in there, it's probably not going to work unless it specifically came out of a PS2. Also, if you have 640K of memory, there's no point in actually even messing with those at all because that's all the memory that this computer will support, period. Anyway, if you look around here, the motherboard, we have in the center this little card that sticks up. That's the riser card for the 2 8-bit ISA slots that are on this computer. Now, a lot of people will say that these things are, the Model 25 and Model 30 were the only in the PS2 line which were ISA compatible, meaning you can use standard cards on these, so it's pretty easy to add things like a sound card or a modem or even a aftermarket hard drive controller. Now, if you look right over here, this bad boy right here is the CPU, and this slot right here is for the math coprocessor. I actually don't have a math coprocessor installed in mine. And also, if you look down at my CPU, it's not an 8086, it's an NEC-V30. If you have one of these, I highly suggest you scoop one of these up. I bought 2 of them on eBay for $14 shipped. I don't know if they're always available that cheap, but mine definitely was. I'm gonna go over here, and what you have there, it looks like an IDE cable attachment, right? These things do have an onboard hard drive interface, but it's not standard. So this connector will only work with very proprietary IBM hard drives, which, like I said, I actually have one in my other PS2. The connector looks like this on this side, but the opposite end of the connector is an edge connector, kind of like an old NES, you know, the Nintendo cartridges. It's just a flat piece of metal with copper leads on it that you kind of plug in. If you plug a regular hard drive into this, it's not going to work. Now, what you can do, if you want to run a hard drive in your PS2, you can either buy a 8-bit ISA hard drive interface card and then a hard drive. But if you do that, there's going to be another problem you're going to have. If you look here at the power supply cable, you'll notice that there's no Molex power connector coming off of the top of the computer. You can, I haven't actually done this, I've seen some people do this. You can, I guess, splice a Molex power cable off somewhere and use it to power a hard drive. I remember specifically when I had one of these in high school back in the mid-90s, I ordered a hard kit for it, and the interface card had a Molex power cable that came off of it specifically for powering the hard drive, which was cool. I think the one that I bought was 40 megabytes. Let's look at what else we got here. Yeah, this is for the disk drive. Now, you'll see that I have this other random card right here that comes back off of the disk drive cable. What this card is it's a interface card for a 5 1/4 inch great big old floppy drive, which I have up in the attic. This is also an IBM option. You'll see it comes back here, and the 5 1/4 drive I have actually has a cable that plugs right into that, so you can use your old school floppy drives. And I guess that was for people that bought these things as a replacement for their old XTs, I guess. I mean, it's marginally better than an original XT. I guess it's a lot smaller. If you get one of these, I suggest, depending on what you do with it, the 2 upgrades that make the most sense as far as this being usable for me would be there's this card called an XT IDE, which is a compact flash adapter card. I actually bought 2 of them, but I haven't put them together yet. I have to buy the hardware and solder it on and do some setups. If you plug an XT IDE card into one of your ISA slots, you could then run a compact flash disk as a hard drive, which is cool because you don't have to deal with either an old proprietary hard drive or finding a rare IDE controller and then splicing a Molex power connector on, at which point you'll then be running a super old hard drive anyway. The other cool thing that I like to put in these is a Sound Blaster card. I actually had a CT1350B in here. If you're looking for a specific Sound Blaster to get for yours from eBay, I suggest that one. Alright, I'm going to share something else that's kind of important to you here. Now, you saw how I opened this thing up. This is something you'll learn if you own these. I remembered it as soon as I opened it up from the one that I had in high school. But you see these little wings here on the side? These little slots? Well, since this is on a hinge and it has all these cables hanging loose, you have to basically make sure that you don't smush your cables when you're closing this thing back up. You could splice your hard drive or floppy drive interface cable or short something out or completely destroy your unit if you just kind of force this thing shut. So if you're closing it up and you feel anything that's interference, look down into it while you close it up so that you don't smash anything. I look down and basically manually glide those slots into those the pins on either side. Alright, now I'm going to show you what you can do with this machine. First of all, once you've already checked everything out, just go ahead and flip her on. You got your brightness and contrast here for all you folks that have never had a CRT monitor. If you just adjust these settings, you can kind of get the monitor where you can see everything nicely. Now, what it does is, it starts up, it beeps. You see the disk drive there? What it's doing is it's looking for a startup disk. And if you don't have one, it's just going to give you this F1 prompt, right? Now here's the thing, you could still do something with this if you don't have a startup disk. Just go ahead and press F1 and it goes to this screen right here, which is basic programming. Now if you look on the internet, you can actually find a bunch of basic programs. Basic programs are just computer programming language that's in plain English that pretty much anybody could do. It's a really fun way for kids to learn how to program. But I mean, I'll make a little program here real quickly, just for the hell of it. 10. Oh, ish. Typo. Alright, so I just made 3 lines of code, and if I press, I believe F2, it's going to run this program. So yeah, there you go. It's pretty annoying. It says happy birthday and beeps constantly. Now if you press control break, you can get right back out of your program. When I was a little kid, I would make computers in the lab say critical error and then beep over and over. It was kind of funny back then because your computer illiterate friends would come in and think that the computer had some sort of virus or something. The next thing I'm going to do is boot this thing up with MS-DOS startup disk. Now I'm assuming you have one. If you don't, you're going to have to find a computer that has DOS and a 3.5-inch disk drive. That's actually how I started getting extra computers. That's how this whole vintage computer thing works. I got this PS2 and I couldn't make a DOS startup disk for it. So I picked up another 486 that had a functional hard drive just so I could make a startup disk for it. But anyway, pop this thing in here. I'm going to press Control Alt Delete. That'll reboot the computer. There you go, it's beeping, and you can hear the grinding. These old disk drives are kind of loud. You see it says starting MS-DOS. Now, my startup disk has a little bit of extra stuff on it. It's going to try to load the drivers for the Easy Flyer drive, which I don't actually have hooked up right now. And if you have a hard drive, it loads DOS. You can load DOS from the hard drive. That's why people don't just run their computers off of disk drives. It's a lot easier to use if you have a hard drive. Anyway, I'm going to eject this disk. Once you start up a computer with a startup disk, you can eject it, but you have to have it handy because occasionally it'll ask you, specifically when you exit out of programs, to reinsert a disk with the system files on it. Now, I have a disk right here of a game called Budokan, which is pretty cool. It also makes really good use out of the color MCGA graphics on this. So I'm going to pop that in there, and I'm going to type dir, which is going to show me what's on the disk. And you see right there, there is a program. It's called Budo. So run it up. Alright, look at that amazing stuff. It's a martial arts fighting game. I remember spending a lot of time playing this when I was like 12. Walk your guy around here. Sure, let's try the tournament. All these different icons are different events you could participate in. Hey, it's a sensei. Let's talk to him and see what he's got to say. When the onslaught comes to you, flow back. When the onslaught recedes, you flow back upon it. There you go. Your moment of wisdom. Anyway, you see the graphics. A lot of the demos I see people with these computers are always running CGA. CGA games run fine on this, but I mean, there are games with better graphics that run on these things. You just got to know which ones to run. See my little guy entering the pagoda there. Alright, some sort of fight. I have no idea how to play this game. I haven't played it in maybe 20 years, maybe. So let's just see what happens. Now, you didn't hear that, but it actually had a, it just played a voice through the PC speaker. Oh crap. I don't know. I have no idea what to do here. Yeah, I'm pretty crappy at karate apparently. Oh, there's a jump button. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, you get the point. Anyway, I'm gonna end the video right now. I just gave you the basic gist of the computer. If you have any questions, just let me know.